Alex had always taken pride in his towering oak tree. It wasn't just any tree. It was a living monument, a symbol of resilience and beauty that had stood for decades in his front yard. Experts had valued it at an astounding $240,000, and to us, Alex, that number meant more than just money. It represented years of nurturing, the family memories under its sprawling branches, and the legacy he hoped to pass on to his children. That evening, as the sun dipped low behind the neighboring rooftops, casting long shadows across the neighborhood, Alex stood on his porch, sipping a cold drink. The air was thick with the smell of summer grass and distant barbecue smoke. He glanced up at his beloved oak, its leaves rustling gently in the breeze. But something was off. His eyes caught sight of fresh cuts along several thick branches, jagged marks that didn't belong. A chill ran down his spine. Who would dare? Who could have harmed his prized tree? The neighborhood had always been quiet, peaceful even, but there was one neighbor who had never seemed to get along with Alex, Karen. She lived just across the street, a woman infamous for her sharp tongue and even sharper temper. Rumors swirled about her endless complaints to the HOA about everything, from lawn heights to parking spots. The community called her Karen, but it wasn't a nickname. It was an accurate description of her abrasive nature. Alex's heart sank as he remembered their last confrontation 2 weeks ago. Karen had stormed over, red-faced, and shouting about how the tree's branches were invading her space and ruining her property value. Alex had tried to explain that the tree was healthy and that any trimming had to follow strict HOA guidelines. But Karen had simply waved him off and warned, "If you won't do something, I will." At the time, Alex thought she was bluffing. Now, staring at the fresh wounds on the tree's limbs, a cold realization hit him. Karen had acted, and it wasn't legal. The neighborhood buzzed with gossip. A few neighbors had noticed her sneaking around the oak late at night, saw her carrying clippers and saws, but no one had stopped her. Fear of confrontation held them back. Alex knew the tree's value was not just monetary. The oak was the neighborhood's landmark, a source of pride for many. If it were to fall or suffer permanent damage, it would be a loss felt far beyond his own front yard. He pulled out his phone and snapped photos of the damage. His fingers trembled slightly. This would be evidence if things escalated. But what worried him most was Karen's next move. If she was willing to cut the tree illegally, what would she do next? His mind raced as the sun disappeared completely, leaving only the faint glow of street lamps. In the distance, Karen's house was lit up, curtains twitching, as if she was watching. Alex sighed deeply and decided he couldn't wait any longer. He needed to talk to the HOA, the arborists, maybe even a lawyer. This was no longer just about a tree. It was about boundaries, respect, and potentially a war brewing under the calm surface of their suburban neighborhood. As the night deepened, the tree's damaged branches seemed to whisper warnings in the wind. Warnings Alex couldn't afford to ignore. The morning after discovering the damage, Alex woke up with a knot in his stomach. He couldn't shake the feeling that the peaceful neighborhood he once loved was quietly unraveling. Determined to address the issue head-on, he grabbed his phone and called the HOA president, hoping for a swift resolution. But the response he got was far from reassuring. "We'll look into it," the HOA president said flatly, before quickly changing the subject. It was clear the HOA wanted to avoid drama, and Alex suspected Karen had already been talking. That afternoon, as the sun climbed high and neighbors went about their routines, Karen showed up on Alex's doorstep, storming in like a force of nature. "You have to do something about that tree," she snapped, her eyes blazing. It's been hanging over my fence for years, blocking sunlight and dropping leaves everywhere. It's a hazard. Alex stood his ground. The tree is healthy and well-maintained, Karen. The branches overhanging your property are minimal, and HOA guidelines say only authorized tree experts can trim it. Karen scoffed. I don't care about your HOA rules. It's my property, and I'm tired of dealing with your excuses. The air thickened with tension as Karen stepped closer, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. If you won't fix this, I will. Mark my words. Alex felt a chill. Was she serious? He had no doubt Karen was volatile, but this felt like a direct threat. He tried to reason with her one last time. Karen, cutting the tree without permission is illegal. You could cause serious damage to the tree, to yourself, or to your property. Her eyes narrowed. Maybe that's the point. The confrontation ended with Karen slamming the door, leaving Alex standing on his porch, heart pounding. The neighbors nearby watched in uneasy silence, sensing the storm brewing, but unsure where to step in. Over the next few days, Alex noticed Karen's behavior growing more erratic. She was often outside late at night, prowling around the oak tree, with a saw or clippers in hand. At first, he convinced himself she wouldn't actually go through with anything. But then came the fresh cuts he'd seen the night before. Each new wound on the tree felt like a countdown, ticking down to disaster. Alex began documenting everything. Photos, videos, even notes about times Karen was spotted near the tree. He reached out to a trusted arborist, who promised to inspect the tree immediately. Meanwhile, rumors swirled through the neighborhood. Some neighbors sympathized with Karen, annoyed by the oak's shade over their yards. Others saw her as reckless, a troublemaker disrupting the fragile peace. At the next HOA meeting, the tension exploded. Karen arrived early, her face flushed with anger. When Alex presented his evidence of the tree's damage, she interrupted loudly. You're exaggerating. This tree was a hazard before I ever touched it, she claimed, her voice echoing through the room. The HOA board members exchanged uneasy glances. They wanted to mediate, but Karen's aggressive stance made compromise impossible. The atmosphere in the room was electric, every word charged with accusation and mistrust. Alex felt the weight of the community's eyes, some sympathetic, others skeptical. As the meeting ended with no clear resolution, Alex walked out feeling more isolated than ever. Karen had made it clear. She was willing to break rules to get her way, and she wasn't afraid to blame him if things went wrong. That night, the wind howled around the oak tree's scarred limbs, whispering warnings Alex feared he hadn't heeded soon enough. Night had fallen over the neighborhood like a thick blanket, wrapping every house in shadow and silence. Most residents were tucked safely inside, unaware that the peace was about to shatter. But Alex couldn't sleep. The image of his battered tree haunted him. The deep cuts, the damaged bark, the sickly branches barely holding on. He kept replaying Karen's threats in his mind, a chill creeping up his spine. At precisely midnight, as the street lay cloaked in darkness, a faint rustling stirred near the oak tree. A shadow slipped silently through the yard. It was Karen, clad in dark clothes, a headlamp illuminating her path. Karen approached the tree with a saw in hand. Her face was set with grim determination. She muttered to herself, "If he won't do it, then I will." The quiet night was pierced only by the steady snip of her clippers and the whir of the saw. Karen worked quickly, cutting deeper and deeper into the tree's massive trunk and thick branches. Each stroke was a strike against the tree's heart. Unbeknownst to her, Alex's security camera, installed after a previous minor break-in, silently recorded every move. As the cuts deepened, the tree began to groan. a low haunting sound that echoed through the night air like a warning. Karen paused for a moment, breathing heavily, her eyes glinting in the headlamp's glow. "Just a little more," she whispered, slicing through a major limb that snapped sharply, sending a shower of leaves raining down. Suddenly a loud creak reverberated, a warning sign ignored. Karen froze, staring up at the precarious branch she'd just severed. It swayed dangerously in the wind. "This is for my property," she hissed defiantly. But nature had its own plan. The branch cracked again, louder this time. Karen's heart raced. She took a step back, eyes wide, then without warning, a massive section of the tree cracked free, crashing down with a terrifying thud that shook the ground. The sound woke neighbors up blocks away. Lights flicked on. Dogs barked. Karen barely dodged the falling timber, her breath ragged. She stumbled back, shaken but unharmed. For a brief moment, she stared at the damage she'd inflicted. Deep gashes in the tree's trunk, limbs broken and scattered like fallen soldiers. It was a reckless act, one that could cost the neighborhood dearly. Back inside her house, Karen slammed the door, breathing heavily, adrenaline surging through her veins. She knew she had crossed a line, but she didn't regret it. Meanwhile, Alex, awakened by the noise, checked his phone and gasped when he saw the security footage capturing the entire sabotage. His mind raced. This was beyond neighborhood squabbles. This was destruction and illegal trespassing. The tree's health was now critical. If it survived at all, it would never be the same. Alex reached out immediately to the arborist, urgency flooding his voice. "You need to come out tonight. The tree's been severely damaged." As dawn approached, the neighborhood stirred, whispers spreading fast about the tree's near collapse. Eyes turned suspiciously toward Karen's house, where curtains stayed drawn. Alex knew the worst was yet to come. The oak tree, once a proud giant, was now a ticking time bomb. And Karen, she had set the fuse. Morning arrived over the neighborhood, in a pale wash of light. But the usual calm was nowhere to be found. Instead, an uneasy hush settled like a fog over the streets, as if everyone was holding their breath. Alex was the first outside. He walked toward his prized oak tree with a heavy heart, dread weighing down every step. The damage from the previous night's sabotage was worse than he had feared. Deep cuts marred the thick trunk, gashes exposing raw wood beneath the bark. Large limbs, once lush and strong, hung precariously, their twisted shapes casting eerie shadows on the lawn. The ground beneath was littered with broken branches and splintered leaves, like the aftermath of a violent storm. Alex ran his hand along one of the wounds, grimacing. This wasn't just damage. It was a death sentence for the tree. He called the arborist he trusted most, a woman named Sarah, who arrived within the hour. She circled the tree carefully, her expression darkening with each step. "This isn't just trimming gone wrong," she said quietly. "This is deliberate mutilation. The cuts are too deep. They've compromised the tree's structural integrity. If it survives, it'll be unstable and dangerous." Alex swallowed hard. "Can it be saved?" Sarah shook her head slowly. "Not without extensive treatment, but even then, it's uncertain. The risk of it falling increases every day, especially if there's a storm." Alex's thoughts raced. What if it fell on Karen's house? Or worse, on a neighbor? But more than fear, he felt frustration. Karen had crossed a line, and now the whole neighborhood could pay the price. Word spread quickly. Neighbors gathered in small groups, whispering about the tree's condition and the night's strange noises. Some expressed sympathy for Alex's loss. Others seemed to tiptoe around the elephant in the room, Karen. Rumors flew. Some said Karen had been seen near the tree again, late at night, carrying tools. Others whispered that she was already blaming Alex for the tree's decline, spinning the story to her advantage. At the grocery store, Alex overheard snippets of conversations. If he cared, the tree wouldn't be a hazard. One woman said, "Maybe Karen's right." Another whispered. The subtle shift in opinion gnawed at Alex. The tree's damage had become a weapon in Karen's hands, a way to turn neighbors against him. That evening, Alex received a call that chilled him to the bone. "Karen's blaming you for the tree's condition," the HOA president said, his voice tight. "She's telling everyone you've been neglecting it. People are scared the tree might fall on her house." Alex closed his eyes. The irony stung. Karen had destroyed the tree, yet she was painting herself as the victim. He resolved to fight back with facts. He gathered all the evidence he had: photos, videos, arborist reports, and even the security footage of Karen cutting the tree. But even armed with proof, he knew convincing the HOA or the neighbors wouldn't be easy. Days passed, and the tree groaned softly in the wind, its weakened branches swaying like fragile bones. Every creak was a reminder of what was at stake. One night, as a storm brewed on the horizon, Alex sat on his porch, eyes fixed on the tree. The sky darkened, and a cold wind whispered through the leaves. Suddenly, a loud crack split the air. Neighbors rushed outside as the largest limb cracked free, smashing onto the lawn with a thunderous crash. Karen's house stood dangerously close beneath the tree's shadow, and everyone's heart stopped. Would the next fall be on her home? The silent warning had become a clear threat. Alex realized that this battle wasn't just about a tree anymore. It was about safety, truth, and the fragile trust that held their community together, and time was running out. The day had been gloomy, the sky heavy with thick clouds threatening rain. Neighbors glanced nervously upward as dark winds whipped leaves across the sidewalks. Everyone knew a storm was coming, but no one expected just how destructive it would be. Alex stood on his porch, eyes fixed on his battered oak tree. The once majestic giant now looked like a wounded sentinel, branches hanging low and twisted. His heart pounded, knowing the tree was a ticking time bomb, vulnerable to any strong gust. That night, the storm hit with furious intensity. Rain pelted rooftops, lightning flashed violently, and the wind howled like a wild beast unleashed. Alex barely slept, his mind trapped in a whirlwind of worry. He imagined the tree crashing down, tearing through fences, smashing cars, or worse, falling on Karen's house. Suddenly, a monstrous crack shattered the storm's roar. Heart in his throat, Alex rushed outside into the pounding rain. The neighborhood was chaos. Branches and debris scattered everywhere, power flickering on and off. His worst fear was confirmed. The tree had finally fallen. A massive section, weakened by Karen's illegal cuts, had broken free and crashed squarely onto Karen's front porch. The sound of splintering wood echoed through the streets like a gunshot. Neighbors flooded out of their homes, flashlights cutting through the rain. Karen's house was battered, windows shattered, the porch roof collapsing beneath the weight of the giant limb. Miraculously, Karen was inside, shaken, soaked, but unharmed. She stood at the doorway, staring at the destruction with wide eyes. The moment froze in time as the crowd gathered, murmuring in disbelief. Then Karen turned, her gaze locking on Alex with fury blazing in her eyes. "This is your fault," she shouted over the storm, her voice sharp and accusing. "You let that tree become a hazard. You should have taken care of it." Alex felt a cold surge of anger, but swallowed it. "Karen, "You cut the tree illegally. That's what caused this," she sneered. "You're just trying to blame me because you don't want to admit you're responsible." The neighbors watched the exchange, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Some nodded in sympathy toward Karen. Others exchanged wary glances at Alex. The storm raged on, but inside the community, a different kind of storm had erupted. One fueled by blame, fear, and fractured trust. The HOA board convened an emergency meeting the very next day. Karen arrived with a bandaged hand and a determined glare. Alex came armed with evidence, photos, arborist reports, and the surveillance footage showing Karen's sabotage. Voices rose as accusations flew like thunderclaps. Karen denied everything, insisting Alex had neglected the tree and ignored the danger. Alex countered with calm facts and expert opinions, but the crowd was divided. Some felt Karen's house had suffered enough. Others saw her actions as reckless and destructive. The HOA president struggled to maintain order, but the meeting devolved into chaos. Threats of lawsuits were whispered. Friendships fractured. The neighborhood's once peaceful facade cracked. Wide open, as the meeting adjourned, Alex stepped outside. Rain still falling in cold sheets. He looked back at the fallen tree, now a twisted ruin of what it had been. The battle over a single tree had grown into a war between neighbors, and neither side seemed willing to back down. The community center was packed to the brim, the air heavy, with tension and whispered accusations. The emergency HOA meeting had drawn a crowd larger than anyone expected, neighbors on both sides of the oak tree dispute, eager to witness how this conflict would unravel. The oak tree that had once been a symbol of neighborhood pride was now the battleground for deeper grudges and simmering resentments. Alex arrived early, clutching a thick folder filled with evidence. Photos of the damaged tree, arborist reports detailing its compromised health, and the damning security footage showing Karen cutting into the trunk in the dead of night. He felt a mix of resolve and anxiety. This meeting could either clear the air or tear the neighborhood apart. Karen stormed in shortly after, her eyes blazing. She didn't just want to defend herself. She wanted to dominate the narrative. Her presence alone sent ripples through the room, neighbors shifting uncomfortably as she took her seat with a sharp glare, aimed squarely at Alex. The HOA president, a middle-aged man named Mr. Caldwell, tried to keep order. "Let's keep this civil, please. We're here to find a solution, not to point fingers." But civility was already in short supply. Karen launched into her story first, her voice loud and charged. "This tree has been a menace for years. Its branches block my sunlight. Its leaves clog my gutters. Alex has done nothing despite my countless complaints. When I finally took matters into my own hands, I was trying to protect my home, her." Words stirred murmurs of agreement from some, but many eyes were skeptical. Alex took the floor next, his voice steady but firm. The tree was healthy until Karen began cutting it illegally. The damage she caused directly weakened the structure, which led to it falling during the storm and crashing into her house. "I have proof. The security footage, expert assessments, everything." He paused, letting the weight of his evidence sink in. This isn't just about a tree anymore. It's about safety and respect for community rules. Suddenly, a neighbor from the back stood up. "I've seen Karen near that tree at night, tools in hand. She's put us all at risk." Another chimed in. "And if she's willing to break the rules once, what's to stop her from doing it again?" Karen snapped back. "You don't know the whole story. Alex has been hostile and uncooperative. This is just a vendetta against me." The room buzzed with tension, lines hardening between Karen's supporters and Alex's allies. Mr. Caldwell raised his hands. trying to regain control. Enough. We need a resolution that ensures safety and fairness for all. But the meeting spiraled. Accusations flew like lightning bolts. Old grievances resurfaced. Some neighbors revealed they had been unhappy with Karen for years, citing other disputes and complaints. Others confessed discomfort with Alex's growing hostility. The board members exchanged worried looks. They knew the neighborhood's harmony was unraveling, and a simple tree dispute had exposed deep fissures. By the end of the meeting, no agreement was reached. The HOA president announced a vote on fines and potential legal action, but many abstained or opposed it, wary of further dividing the community. Outside, as neighbors filtered out into the cool night air, whispered conversations bubbled with uncertainty. Would the HOA truly act? Or would fear of backlash keep them silent? Alex and Karen faced each other across the crowd, a silent battlefield of resentment and blame. The oak tree's fall had sparked more than just physical damage. It had ignited a powder keg of mistrust, and the neighborhood was left to wonder, could they ever rebuild what had been broken? The storm of the HOA meeting had passed, but the tension in the neighborhood hung heavier than ever. Alex returned home, exhausted and anxious, knowing the battle was far from over. Yet beneath the surface of public disputes, a deeper mystery began to unravel, one that neither he nor Karen expected. That afternoon, Alex decided to visit the local historical society. His curiosity about the tree's history had grown, fueled by strange comments from neighbors hinting at old secrets tied to the oak. Maybe understanding its past could help explain why the conflict had escalated so violently. At the society, an elderly archivist named Mrs. Linden greeted him warmly. When Alex mentioned the tree, her eyes lit up with recognition. "Oh, that tree," she said, leading him to dusty archives and faded photographs. "It's been part of this community for over a century. Some say it's a symbol of unity, and others whisper it's a marker of old property disputes." Alex studied the photos. The oak had indeed stood for generations, witnessed countless neighborhood changes. But then, Mrs. Linden pulled out an old deed and a series of hand-drawn maps, detailing property lines from decades ago. "Here's something interesting," she said. "There was a boundary dispute here, long before either you or Karen lived here. The oak stood near a contested property line. Some owners even tried to claim parts of the land under it." Alex's mind raced. Could the oak tree be more than just a plant? Could it represent old tensions buried beneath polite neighborhood facades? Back home, as Alex pondered the discovery, his phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging. Some things are better left alone." The warning sent a shiver down his spine. Later that night, a series of strange occurrences began. Alex's security cameras were mysteriously disabled. His yard was trespassed upon. And worse, he received anonymous calls with heavy breathing. On the other end, meanwhile, Karen seemed oddly emboldened. Without explanation, she began rallying neighbors, spreading rumors that Alex was trying to stir trouble with the HOA and local authorities. Her supporters grew louder, painting Alex as the agitator. But the tension wasn't just personal anymore. It was political, fueled by history, fear, and secrets no one wanted uncovered. One evening, as Alex returned from a late meeting with the arborist, he found a hastily scrawled note pinned to his door. "Leave the tree alone or face the consequences." The neighborhood was no longer just divided. It was boiling with unspoken fears and threats. Alex realized the oak tree was a catalyst, exposing fractures that ran deeper than he'd imagined. He wondered if the true battle wasn't just about the tree but about something far older. something hidden in the very roots beneath their feet. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the battered oak, Alex knew one thing for sure. The story was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. The neighborhood was on edge. After weeks of tension, threats, and secrets, Alex felt the weight of the whole ordeal pressing down on him. He knew he needed to find a way to bring the truth to light, not just about the tree, but about the fractures tearing the community apart. Determined, Alex arranged a meeting with the HOA board and several key neighbors, including Karen. He decided to confront the past head-on. Armed with what he had discovered about the old property disputes and the anonymous threats, at the meeting, Alex laid out everything: the historical records from the society, the old boundary disputes, the significance of the oak tree, and the recent acts of sabotage. He played the security footage, showing Karen cutting the tree, and shared the disturbing anonymous warnings he'd received. For a moment, the room was silent, everyone absorbing the gravity of the revelations. Then Karen, visibly shaken, broke the silence. I didn't know about any of this, she admitted, her voice softer now. I was just scared. I thought the tree was a threat to my home, and I felt ignored. Alex nodded. We all want to protect our homes, Karen, but destroying the tree wasn't the answer. This oak is part of our community's history, and it affects all of us. The HOA president stepped forward. This has gone far enough. We need to work together. No more blaming, no more secrets. Then, in a surprising turn, one of the neighbors, Mrs. Ramirez, spoke up. I've lived here for 30 years. I knew about the old dispute, but more importantly, I saw who left those anonymous notes and tampered with Alex's cameras. All eyes turned to her. It was Karen's cousin, she said quietly. He's been stirring up trouble, hoping to push Alex out and get control of some of this land. The tree's destruction was just a part of his plan. Gasps filled the room. Karen looked stunned, but then relief softened her features. I never wanted this. I was being used. The HOA agreed to bring in professional mediators and arborists to carefully assess the tree's condition and decide on its fate together. Plans were made for the tree to be preserved where possible, and the neighborhood to heal. Alex and Karen, though still cautious, agreed to communicate openly going forward. The community began to rally around the idea that cooperation was their only path forward. But just when it seemed the nightmare was ending, Alex received one last message on his phone. It was a photo of the oak tree's base, fresh, deep gouges carved overnight, and beneath the photo, a chilling note. This isn't over. Alex looked out at the tree, the symbol of so much conflict and history, and realized the fight for this neighborhood's soul might just be beginning.